These presumably are artifacts of the ritual sacrifices that were made either by the emperor once a year or by his high officials. Apparently, as in most societies like this, highly ritualized. This diorama describes the manufacturing of the pottery. Two types, the dressed and the clay-coated. Most of the figures were dressed. The standard manufacturing procedure was patterning of the limbs and the trunk, binding of the nose, ears, and penis, elaborate carving of the face, kilning of the figures, and coloring before the second kilning. The two holes were preserved on either side of the shoulder for forcing or fixing of the arms, which were made of wood, which is why they don't exist. Finally, the figures were dressed in the different styles of accordance with the identity of each figure. And since that was material, that's all weathered away and that doesn't exist anymore. Apparently, there's going to be some attempt in the future to reconstruct a number of those figures in their original form. These are the clothes that were worn. This was a partial mold, demonstrating that the figures were made of about 8 different molded pieces. This display illustrating the different animals that were warehoused, if you will. And they would have all been colored realistically. And now I exit from this beautiful museum. Even the movie was novel. It was a small format utilizing some kind of CG animation, but animation in the sense that the people you saw were probably photographed or videoed, and then it was made to look like an animation insertion into the various backdrops that were created. It's under all of this that the museum lies. Now, exactly where the tomb of Jingdi was, I don't know. But surrounding it were all of those pits. And here's another very large structure. Very little information is given in English, so you have to kind of wait till you get there and hope there's something. Appears to be a bird, perhaps the Chinese stork. So apparently we take the stairs up. My guess, without knowing, is that this was where the tomb of Jingdi was, on a center mount, if you will. Again, it's almost impossible from the information here to determine anything about where you're at, but I assume that we're in a structure that covers this mound, and that the museum itself was somewhere in these areas that appear to be excavated. These pits that you see here. Again, there's no way to know because there's nothing in English. Some of the excavation going on, apparently, or has gone on apparently, of this big mound. Okay, so here's an explanation. The Yangling is the combined mausoleum where Emperor Jingdi, named Liu Qi, and his Empress Wang were buried under 2 separate mounds but in the same burial area. They were placed in different cemeteries. Both of the plains are square. Their respective towers built in the center of the walls around the mausoleum of Emperor Jingdi. The Southgate Tower of ruins of the mausoleum of Emperor Jingdi, excavated in the spring of 1999, so far at the earliest stage and the highest rank, and on the largest scale through scientific excavation. An exhibition hall of the Southgate Tower project was completed in 2001 to protect the ruins. The historical remains a great number of relics that will be displayed, blah, blah, blah. This doesn't really tell me anything I can figure out. except that under one of these mounds is Jingdi, and under one of the other mound was his empress. It's interesting to note that on either side are these what are called partition wall, and the wooden posts that were used have been burned. Not sure what that indicates. On top, a nondescript display of pottery buildings seen in the museums. They're a tower, but mainly just to fill the space apparently. So this is the main tower platform, whatever that means. Presumably there is some kind of excavation going on underneath this, but otherwise this is a totally nondescript exit. Here apparently the site of the gatehouse. Now whether that implies that the elevation of this whole area was much higher at the time, I have no idea, and there's no way to find out. So adding even more confusion, if I assume that this is the telling document, then in fact this is not anything to do with Jingdi's burial place. It's a gate tower built on both sides of the gates of the city wall, palace, temple, and mausoleum, indicating social status in ancient China, and was called a gate tower. That in itself in English is confusing. The tower originated in the remote past, pictographed characters on the early Xi'an oracle bones. Tower was called so because it was parted into left and right with a breach in the middle, which must be where we saw those burned posts, and because its Chinese character and that of the breach were interchangeable. Courtiers would examine themselves when walking through the imperial tower to be present at court. The tower at the earlier stage was building beside the gate used for living and enjoying the views in the distance, so it was called the reviewing stand. It had not evolved into a courtesy building tower until grand entrance halls could be built. So this part of the site's a complete throwaway from the viewpoint of the average tourist, and certainly the Western tourist. It seems to me that this hill, which seems to be man-made, symmetrical, should be that pyramidal form that we keep seeing in the models. In other words, the point where Emperor Jingdi's tomb is. And apparently from that worn little pathway up there, or gulch, it appears that it used to be accessible, but it's interesting, the grounds are rather extensive. This is a very pretty row of poplar trees. That's what they are. Very park-like off to the left, but it doesn't seem to have any real purpose or function.